All right, so I'll go ahead and start the recording. The objective here is to just simply discuss how I specifically use the quote-unquote bases loaded strategy for ES, NQ, and VIX, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna add that study because I don't have it on this one. So essentially, like, this is just going off of like the current candle at the end of the day. So at the end of the day, when price action closed, NQ was CBC short, like right here.
Are you sharing?
Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. Let me. I'm
Oh,
I'm
you're good.
recording. I'm recording, but I haven't
Oh,
started sharing yet.
all right.
All right, there we go.
Oh, there we
Okay,
go.
there we go. So, and at the end of the day, you know, VIX flipped CBC long, and at the end of the day, Friday, ES it flipped CBC short. So, like that's all red. So that's all like a bearish signal. So, essentially, I just have them color coded to be able to explain that, you know, if it's red, you're looking for a short, or it might be a good time to exit longs, and
Yeah.
if it's green, you're looking for a long or exit shorts, or at least like notify like a notification that like, hey, if all three are changing, you know, the trend and the power of control is shifting from one side, you know, bears to bulls or bulls to bears, what have you.
Yeah.
So like I'm always watching the three of them all the time. Like on my vertical monitor, I have this exact same loadout, right? NQ, VIX, ES, except it's just vertical. So NQ's on top, VIX, and then ES. And then I also have SPX and QQQ with no extended hours on. And that's mostly to just kind of watch where EMAs are and things, because a lot of times, especially like if you look at Friday, we had a large gap up. We had a large gap up on NQ and QQ. I'm sorry, QQQ and SPX. And then you can see here, you can see the screen, right? The picture.
Yes, I do.
Yep. So you can see like just how once the 10-minute 9 EMA caught up, like we just continued upwards for a while. So that's why I watch these with no extended, like obviously there's no extended hours for SPX, but I have QQQ with no extended hours for the same exact reason, to kind of get a feel for both markets. I could also just chart NDX, but I personally just like the Qs. It's the same difference.
Yeah, same thing.
So so then it's essentially like, I'll just go back to, because I already started making notes, and then we can work on different days. So this is Monday on VIX.
Is that the cloud? The blue and yellow?
Yeah, this is the higher time frame cloud. So that's the hourly 3450 EMA. And the reason, like, so I saw obviously that Ripster uses it, and I got intrigued by it. And then I was just looking at how I always felt like the 10-minute 200, people would talk about 10-minute 200 rejection, and I would just be like, yeah, but it didn't work, right? Like, we would be so far extended from the 10-minute 200. We like it, you know, I would look at it as like a defined level with maybe like plus or minus 25 cents, and it wouldn't work. But like so many times now with this cloud, this hourly 3450 EMA cloud is very strong, and it works like so many times. And as we go through the week, you'll be like, holy shit, that thing really works, right? So like going into the close Friday, we broke under the cloud, but we like hit this same quote unquote demand area on VIX, right? And so what I was worried about, or what I was looking at, is we hit this demand area, but then we could not flip CBC back short in this demand. So that's telling me, quote unquote, like bulls might be in control of VIX, which is bearish for the market. I know that like there are no bulls and bears on VIX, but like the same thought process and logic applies. So if that's where we are on Friday, looking at this here, and it looks at the same thing going into Friday's close, we were bearish on 10-minute candle by candle on both NQ and ES. So like I have not done enough testing to apply this to like, well, hey, let me take a swing trade over the weekend. However, we are rejecting in the higher time frame cloud, right? After barely breaking a new high of day on both indices, right? This was non-farm payroll, I believe. So we basically just wick over the non-farm payroll high on both, and then it looks like we're going to come back down. And that's, of course, exactly what played out, right? So VIX has a large gap up move. The market has a large gap down move. And then on Monday, what we see here is like just prime examples of, how I would use VIX and ES and NQ to be successful trading this. So like, obviously you can see the price action is decisively bearish, right? Going into the open, right at the open, you would see, hey, we're long on VIX, which is bearish. We're short on NQ now. We're short on ES now, right? So like right when the bell opens, everything is pointing downward, which is not to say like do not instantly just take a short. But on NQ it did work, but that's unreliable. So what I would see here, what I'd be curious about is, okay, now after the first 10-minute candle closes, it's flashing a CBC flip short on the VIX. What's really important, though, is that the indicator would not have changed. And the indicator doesn't change unless it actually closes under. The arrows indicator, for whatever reason, and I can't quite figure out how to change it, if it ties the close, or the low of the prior candle, it'll still put the arrow up. So like if we look at like these two candles very specifically, the low of this candle was 26.35. The close of this candle was 26.35. So it doesn't tell me the bears have regained any sort of control here because they're just holding the same level.
Yeah.
So like I would disregard this flip, and I would know to disregard this flip because this indicator wouldn't change. And then essentially all I would be doing is just watching for, like, again, the candle by candle indicator wouldn't have flipped here. This just looks like a pullback because it has to close below the prior bar in order to truly be a flip. So this is all long. This is still a long. And then I'm seeing that like the 10-minute 20 is holding up here on VIX. Large gap up, 10-minute 20 is holding. These are all like go short, right? Like, you see this red candle when it's all the way down here, but it doesn't close down there. It doesn't give you a strong flip. And when it doesn't, if you just went short on the next candle, you would see here, like on NQ. I know I have a couple of drawings here and I'll get to them in a second, but you would see that this would be a great pullback short, right off the 10-minute 9 again. And then looking at it here on ES actually flipped the candle by candle long. And that's where I drew this, like these arrows here. If you waited till you truly had bases loaded to short again on all three, that's after this candle, right? So I'm sorry, that's after this candle. So then here, you're now looking for a short at 10 a.m., right? And at 10 a.m., you get a large spike on the VIX. So like kind of to add confirmation, hey, when we close the orb and it's now 10 a.m., everything, including the basis load indicator, would tell you it's a short. And I would be looking at the VIX and saying, like, obviously it's a short. Look at this gap up move. And if all I have to go off of is this chart, I've got no reason to believe this chart is going to come back down anytime soon. And if VIX is not coming down, the market is not going up. We're going down. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And then like here's a great thing that happened like later, because obviously it stays in that downward trend and you get this like this push upwards, right? And this ends up being a very, very weak reversal. And I actually think I traded this on Monday on NQ. And like this is one of those weak reversals that didn't have a move like Friday did. And one of the things that was telling was this orb low fake out breakout where the 26 level holds on the VIX, right? So like here's 26 right here just below the orb low. So 26 held there, 26 holds here. It gets pierced and then they close back above it. The higher time frame 3450 cloud holds. So what I saw from this, and I've done some back testing with this. I don't have enough to say like 75% of the time, whatever. But what I've seen with this is that When we get this sort of move, and then we come back down and we have a fake out breakout on the other side of the range, we're likely to go test this part of the range, right? So we're likely to go back up and potentially exceed this move. And if we're going to do that, this is going to be overtaken, and we're likely to get a copied measure move from the peak to the peak. So like this moves down 380 points, which if I would have told you here, we're going to go down another 380 points from here, you probably would have looked at me like I was crazy. We went down even further. So you have this move, you have the pullback, and then you have another one. And that's where people probably come up with like the ABCD pattern, I think. But I've never studied that. I've just always seen like zigzag line and been like, anytime I've ever looked for that, I've been like, I don't know what the F you're talking about. But with VIX, seeing that like, okay, we just had this fake out breakout, this EMA is holding. As soon as we're going to reclaim this, like we're off to the races, right? And then truly on this candle at 12, you have bases loaded to short again. And like you can see where my cursor is. If you just look on all three charts, ES, NQ, and VIX are now all in the same line. The indicator would tell you it's red. And from there, you know it's a short. And unless you get a trend change, you know, where all three of them flip back, you know you're going to continue short because it's going to be a trend day. And so this has helped me to say, hey, how do I know when it's going to be a trend day? How do I know when it's going to chop? How do I know when I'm going to get a double bottom or whatever? And like, for sure, they probably faked some people out thinking that they were going to get a double bottom here and it was going to pop. But as soon as this candle flipped back red, I would just re-enter, or you know, I would wait for a pullback to re-enter into it because it's like, why not? You get these little flips here, but like again, you get this little hammer flip right here into the EMAs. I'm not putting much weight on that. I'm not going to say that, oh, because VIX flipped, we are going to get a reversal now. I'd be looking for, okay, VIX flipped. Let me see what the other two are doing. They look heavy as hell. We ain't going anywhere. We're going to go back up. VIX is going to go back up. So I know VIX is going to spike. That gives me more confidence to just get back in a short and ride the short trend. And for both ES and NQ, you know, you see just how these moves, these double move played out. And I mean, it went further. I mean, honestly, on ES, you could have said like once we broke the low, we're going to go that far again, and we did. You know, it was pretty wild. But on NQ, we didn't quite go down that far again. Is this making sense though? Just kind of how I have all three like bases loaded.
Yeah, I'm the thing I'm trying to understand with how VIX moves compared to like ES or NQ. Like you see, it it gave a double bottom. It actually did a lower low on the 10-minute, but the reverse on ES, it wasn't like almost a double top. You know what I mean? It kind of did a lower high.
Here?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And this gave you an Orblo like break and base type look.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
This was like ES was much cleaner. The tough part here though is that like when you're candle by candle long and you just kind of are chopping, and then you have a full green bar. Like for many traders are going to struggle with, that was a full green candle, Joe. How did you know to go short there? Well, the truth is I didn't. And I wouldn't. Right? Yeah. But once that candle closed, now I knew it was a short. And I want to try to get in the wick if I can, right? And you know, I might, and you can probably barely see because I have that blue line there. I'll delete that. But like that little itty bitty wick, right? Like I might miss that. So that's fine when the candle turns red. If I'm in there at 69, like, yeah, that's tough. That's okay, Joe, that's 13 points risk. Okay. That's 13 points risk. So either A, you don't take all that risk because you don't like the way that setup is. And so you say, I'm only going to risk 5 points or whatever you feel comfortable with. Or B, you size down so that your loss would be equivalent to risking that high. Because I don't think that after such a sharp rejection here, we're going to then eclipse that high again. But sometimes it does happen, and I'm wrong, and that's okay because the market's always right. But like that's where it would just be like I knew it was a short from there, and it was because look how if you got in, and we'll say you got in down here at 69, that's 17 points on that one candle, right?
But I mean, you can even just target the previous low swing low, and you're already got maybe 20 points. No, the where your arrow is pointing.
Yep.
That one.
Oh yeah, dude. That's 20. That's 22 points,
Yeah,
and that's if.
that's my kind of target. That's my usually my first scale out because I'm like there was some kind of reaction there,
Yep.
so I'll take off a position there. And you see, that's exactly where you got that reaction. If you look to the right a little bit at around 12, it's where you got a slow consolidation, but just another re-entry short.
Yep. Yep. And again, like, well, how would I know to like take this short up here? Like, well, I wouldn't, right? Because at this point, like, this is at first, I have this gigantic green candle pushing up, pushing up, pushing up, right? But then, like, all three of them would start to change. And, like, I mean, like, I'm not exactly 100% sure on this, right? And this is just like my sort of feeling and observation from watching a lot of candles print, right? Is that like most of the time, if we have a candle that prints, we're not going to make like a sizable move one way and then turn red, come back down, and then come back up and close here in 10 minutes. Like, that's a very volatile swing most of the time. I don't have the facts on that, but the fact is that like ES, NQ, and VIX were all making a move up around that same time, right? Because VIX was trying to move down, which was potentially putting in a lower high, and they moved this wick down. But then, like in the middle of that candle, it started to turn around and started to come back up. And when it started to come back up, it was just like, okay, like I'm looking for a short again. It's not gonna reverse. But even if I didn't have any of that, even if you're just looking at the price action, it's just like, why would you? Why, even if you just think like, why would you think this is gonna like? Okay, it looks like a double bottom. Yeah, well, it could like W out of this. It could, but like, what about this exudes buying confidence here? Because in 10 minutes, this is all that they could do. Like, this is not enough. Like, look how, this is where like too, you have to understand and think about the context of the overall market is bad. So, all of a sudden, these buyers are just going to show up from where?
And who's your friend, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's already at this point. It's already past 12 o'clock. We're already well under the orb. We're well under everything. EMA's everything. It's just like just join the trend. Oops. So, and then like late in the day, like later in the day, it always gets tricky. But I did say that too. This was a 29.5 reject. So I wanted to just point out to people, because I know I've had people say like, hey, I have like all these levels marked. I don't mark every 50 cents and $1 level. Like, and then also when we get to like when VIX is like quite low, I am also looking at like 12 and a quarter, 12 and a half, 12.75.
Yeah.
I don't have them all marked, but what I do is like if I fast forward to Friday, you'll see that I adjust my alerts like on a regular basis. And so, like going into the open, for example, I had an alert set about here just before the pre-market high. And I had an alert set right here just below the pre-market low. So I want to be alerted either way when either of those levels breaks. I'm still looking at it and I keep peeking at it, but if my attention is elsewhere, I have a specific tone associated with VIX, and it will, I know, like Pavlov's dogs, when the bell rings, when I hear that alert, ping, I'm looking at the VIX chart. And I want to see which way we've broken. Just because sometimes it's like, holy shit, we're spiking, or man, we just flushed. Because a lot of times VIX moves and then the chart's not, right? So all right, so that was Monday, for example.
Yeah.
Let's zoom out a little bit and like go to like Tuesday, and just ignoring, a lot of the price action, from pre-market and stuff. Here's one of my one of my favorite setups is when you get like a pre-market low or an orb low fake out breakout. In this case, you got both. So upon the JOLTS news on Tuesday, this candle spanned the entire orb high, where it went right to the orb high, same high, double top, and then it went down to the orb low. It swept under the pre-market low and the orb low, but then it popped back up. So very concerning here that like looking at the 10-minute EMAs, we had one candle close back under, this candle closes back over, and then this candle is holding it. So even though you went all that range, ultimately wicks do the damage, bodies tell a story. The body of that candle doesn't look very good, right?
Yeah.
And so like even with looking at like the Jolts news, like there was a lot of bearishness on the market, like going into the open, etc. And one thing I called out too in pre-market,
What day was this again? Remind me.
this was Tuesday, March 11th. So in pre-market though, you had a bases loaded flip. So VIX makes a double bottom, flips candle by candle bullish. That's bearish for market. At this same exact 10-minute candle, both ES and NQ flip candle by candle bearish, right? So that, and of course, like if you look at like other price action criteria, you'll see that like NQ wicked over the high, ES made a high, but then instantly flushed it. And so like one thing I was like trying to tell other people and teach other people is just like, you know, there's times when it's like, hey, it's a pullback to an EMA, and people struggle with that. How do I know when it's a pullback, and how do I know when it's a trend change? And like when you get a really strong bearish engulfing, that's one sign. And then for me, having all three together in line and having bases loaded is like the other sign, like it's the final sign, because there are times where we still get an engulfing candle and the trend doesn't change, you know, or you know, or vice versa, right? So the trend changes without the engulfing. But so that was like that was like a big push, and then it pushes back up here. I also noted that this was the golden zone area of the prior day. So where VIX made such a large move from the low to the high, right? Because you know, that's damn near a $4 move, and you see VIX's current ATR is around 3, but that has been continuing to increase. So
Yeah.
I look at it as in terms of, okay, the prior day VIX put in a range that is above its ATR, and so I would be looking for VIX to hold about the middle-ish golden zone of that ATR, which it did. So bearish into the open, right? It fades. You get to VWAP, right? It fades under. You get this bullish CBC flip, right? And a bearish, and you don't quite get the bearish flip on VIX. And this is like, it's open, it's volatile, but then you should be concerned, right? Like, you know, news is coming up, and then it's like all of a sudden this is really fading. So like with what Maple teaches, and a lot of, you know, people are trying to practice, like with getting pullback entries, I mean, but even if you bought the top of this, you still ended up being able to make some profit. But then the next candle should be deeply concerning to you on both indexes, because it's like, whoa, what's happening? And what's happening is this pre-market area is holding on VIX, just like your pre-market high area is holding on NQ. And just like on ES, you're holding the golden zone of that move down.
Yeah.
And then you get, like, this is like, there was super, super confluence to go short. You know, orb high, fake out, breakout on both indexes, along with the 10-minute 200 multi. This is the multi time frame, the hourly 3450 cloud right there, rejection. And then, like from there, right? If like I would be looking at this, I would say none of this is exuding seller confidence down here, right? This does not look strong for sellers on ES or NQ, and you get a VIX previous day high, fake out, breakout, where the first thing it does is it breaks a new high. My alert would have gone off, and then because I would have had the alert up there, I've been like watching that level, and then it fades, and it's like, well, that's not good, because like if you, and I always look at VIX like if I was trading something else, like, well, if I was in options or if I was NQ long right there, we just made a new high. That doesn't look good. Like, I'm going to be thinking, hey, we're probably going to come down at least halfway into this range. And I don't want to sit through that potential quote unquote pullback. We're extended from the EMAs. We just look like we're going to pull back hard here. So I don't want to sit in that. And if I don't want to sit in that as a long trade, I don't want to sit in my short trade anymore either, because this is going to keep working. And so if I'm not going to sit in my short trade anymore, I should probably look to exit it. And then you get like some confirmation, like, okay, I could try the long, where you get like a massive drop here. And this is tough, but, and like candle by candle flips back here, but it doesn't flip back on VIX. Like that's why there's a number 1 here. I wanted to talk about that.
Yeah.
Like candle by candle flips back bearish on like ES. It flips back bearish on NQ, but you could see on NQ that we're holding VWAP. And you can see on ES, like, well, we're just holding the tops of these candles, right? Like, what's up with this little wick right here? Like you're kind of telling me, like where the body closed is telling me, hey, we can't now like overlap this. It doesn't look that good. And VIX never flipped back. So I know I don't like, because when all three flip, that's telling me the trend has changed. I need all three to flip back to tell me the trend has reversed.
And just to add a little more confluence, where you have that level, if you look like 3 candles back, that wick, to the right too. That one. That tells me that's the last failed short attempt. And when
Yes.
it comes back here, we retest that wicks. That tells me these shorts just got out break even,
Yep.
and we're going for a pump up. That's how I read the price action.
Yep. Yep.
Basically.
That's fantastic, man. I would agree with you 100%. This wick right here. Yep. And so they push back up, but like an amateur short is going to get stuff there, because what an amateur short is going to do is they're going to say, okay, well, we flip back down. I'm going to sell halfway through this body if they're patient, and then they're going to take the loss, and then they're going to see the trade work out, and it's going to be like, oh, and they're going to be pissed. But here, VIX flips back right here on this arrow. VIX flips back long. NQ flips back short. ES flips back short. Fantastic. You get this pullback into the EMAs, little pullback into the body, fantastic on all of them. Pull back into VWAP and the 10-minute 20 EMA right there on NQ, absolutely fantastic. And then they give you almost the same entry again a little bit later on a weak candle by candle flip, and that's where it's tough. Like there's times where when we're doing this BS in the range, it's like I don't want to be involved. Like
No.
I don't like this. It doesn't look good. But also, I don't think the trend is going to reverse there, and I still think it's a short. Why do I still think it's a short, even though NQ is long and VIX is short? Because ES never flipped long. I need all three to align for the market to go. And most people would argue, and they don't argue is maybe not the right word, but most people would say ES is king, SPX is king. Okay, if the king has not gone long, then we are not going long. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, SPX is the much bigger asset in terms of volume, in terms of option flow. Yeah, I've had the unusual flow at one point subscription, and you see SPX is way bigger than NDX
Right.
and way bigger than the Qs. So it does dictate the market, because also how I see it is that S&P 500 has your biggest companies, plus those are the most market cap under one umbrella in a sense.
Yep. Exactly.
That's how I see it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, it is your top 500 biggest companies, where NQ is all about tech, right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
and so that's just like, again, it's like this is why I wanted to go through it kind of like day by day, because these examples show you specifically where the strategy has strength, right? And where it has maybe some potential weakness is when you get like these like bogus little flips inside of the range, and you just really, but that's anything else, most of the time you need to wait. But even then, like I'm showing you in this example, you don't have all three. If you don't have all three, then you don't do it. And then here at this point, actually once you then VIX flips back long. That's a short Q. So now ES never flipped. I'm back to having 2 out of my 3 bases loaded, and I'm looking at these NQ bodies like, nah, it's coming back down. Like, look at this. It's coming back down. The bulls are failing. This was the bulls' attempt here. They failed. Then we pushed up in here on this candle. They're failing. Like, ES is just looking weak. This is just like, you could call this a bear flag, whatever. It's going to flush. And another thing, too, the reason I would know it's going to flush, you can never know. Highly suspect that it's going to flush is look at the market structure. We put in this low. What happened here? We broke up to this high. When Jolts couldn't send this higher and Jolts couldn't send VIX lower, right? What happened? We came down here. We broke the low, and we went to like the inside of this range, right? And then we came down here and we made this low, right? We end up coming down here, make this low. And what do I think we're going to do here? If I go short here, I'm expecting us to break this low, which we break decisively, right? Now, VIX fails to make a new high.
Basically, that swing low, that previous swing low, is your low hanging fruit for an exit.
Bingo, exactly. And so, majority of the positions should be scaled out here. And if you want us to hold on to a runner, that's fine. And since it's a runner, you get another 60 points, you should lock in probably about half of that. And then by here, that you're very far extended from the 10-minute EMAs. And then if we also let's look a little bit to the left, like look where you're getting down to, right where this like wick low is from like,
Mhm.
and I watched this price action happen live in Globex as I was just watching charts. And this was a volatile move here. So this would have been like ultimate final target, which it gets broken, and then look at the reversal right out of it. So you
Yeah,
knew, like if we just extend this back one day, you knew that there was, strong participants in here, right?
absolutely.
So then like, okay, how do I know we have a reversal, right? So VIX fails to make a new high here, right?
Mhm.
Following candle, it puts its inside. It looks like it's trying to orb break and base, but then it fails and it knifes back down. At this point, sorry, let me scroll over. At this point, I have bases loaded for reversal, right? So bases loaded reversal here by the body, right, to go long. And what do? I'm at least thinking, hey, we're going to go test this high, which we do. You see there's a slight pullback, and then ultimately we do break high of day as VIX comes down and breaks low of day, right?
Mhm.
I mean, the trend, as far as candle by candle goes, the trend never changes on the way up, and the trend never changes on the way down. And so, like, truthfully, there was no reason to exit along if you bought along here, other than scaling out to lock in profits and de-risk and moving your stop up as you went. There was no reason for you to exit your long position until we either A, reached your primary objective, which would be new high of day, which, all things considered, if you got out on NQ here at 613, you missed out on about 70 points if you got all out there, or if you trailed the runner, you probably could have locked in like another, like half of that. And I would say like half of that because like I'm trying to be a little bit more aggressive on like what I do with a runner, because like objectively speaking, if I thought we were going to break the high of day and we did, if we go up 60 more points and I still get out, I get all out at high of day, then I just sat in that trade for that extra bit for nothing, you know?
Yeah.
So let me lock in some more and make it worth my while. And then here again, this is why I like that multi-time frame cloud. You see the same thing where we start to bounce out of right here. Um, and although I don't get a trend change on this candle on any of them, it is a very concerning candle, as in we can't make a new high on NQ and ES, and we do make a new low on VIX. So VIX pushed down, but the market didn't push up in correlation with it. Red flag. Red flag
Yeah.
is in like, hey, and then if you wanted to, aggressively so, you could say, hey, okay, we have now, from a market's perspective, from a market structure perspective, we have now moved up and broken the high of this range. I suspect now that because we're showing weakness at this high, that we are probably going to come back to potentially the middle or the golden zone of this move from here to here. If you then said, hey, well, I'm sensing strength on VIX and I'm sensing weakness in the market, I'm going to go short here and I'm going to risk this high, and I'm going to go short here, risking this high. And where is my target? Essentially the VWAP area, right? You're short anywhere in here. Let's call it 625. This yields you a 180 point NQ short, or approximately $3,600 for 1 mini.
A lot of money.
A lot of money. And again, why would you think that it's a good idea to go short there? Like, other than what I just named, well, what's the market look like overall lately?
Oh yeah.
Well,
It's everything's a downtrend. It's
mm,
consolidation to get back short for the
ex-
moment. So
exactly.
unless we start breaking some highs and take out big higher time frame bears like
Yep.
a previous day's high, which we did for the first time yesterday. We actually took out the highs from a previous day and climbed for the first time in this whole month almost. Well, it's been a month. The downtrend's been a month now about. It's the first time we did
Mm,
it. We held it a little bit. We held previous day's high
yeah.
for a little bit, and we
Yep.
stayed above it.
Yeah. Just about.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
I have a question for you. So,
Yes.
which one do you find correlates closer, ES or NQ to VIX?
I think ES. I
Yeah.
I think ES correlates closer, but but like NQ moves very similarly to it. And I'm an NQ trader, and then like on the times where it's moving differently, because tech companies do have the biggest weighting in ES, right? Like if you look at like the Applesoft,
Really?
the Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia. I called it Applesoft. Oh my god. um, if you look at them, they're still the bigger ones, but sometimes it's like, okay, well, tech's kind of weak, but banks are strong, healthcare is strong.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, it tells you there's a rotation in the market because I think if you check, Microsoft is it Microsoft is the only one that's above its 200 EMA on the daily.
oh, is that
Most of
right?
the most of the Mag 7 have went below their 200 daily EMA.
That right? I thought Nvidia was still over there. So let me see. Let me see.
Possibly yes, Nvidia as well. But
Yep, Apple's below. Oh, AMD is way below. I mean, duh.
yeah.
Um, Amazon is below, basing below. AVGO is above,
Hmm.
but they're not
But
Mag
I think it
7.
was, yeah, they're not Mag 7.
Meta is above.
Yeah, Meta and Tesla's no way. Yeah, poor Tesla.
Netflix is above. Nvidia just reclaimed it on Friday.
Ah, there you
Tesla
go.
is way
See,
below. Yep.
and I think that
Where's
was as of Friday. So yeah, some have bounced back up.
and Microsoft is way below.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yep. So I
On the
guess
Friday, it was Meta. Yeah, it was Meta.
yep. I guess Meta's the only one that's over, and then I only brought up AVGO because it's a top 10 ticker in NQ
Hmm.
in terms of weighting.
Yeah,
So
I wanted to also go through one thing with the VIX with you.
yes.
I notice sometimes these divergences that happen,
Okay.
whereas we're kind of like making higher highs, and then all of a sudden you kind of see the VIX starting to climb. Have you ever noticed that? When
Yes.
they climb together. And then I'm
Yes.
like, I lose confidence in the play up, and I'm like, so this is not right, right? Usually when you get that ripper up, you kind of see VIX just plummet, right? It just like gaps down on candles.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes it just kind of consolidates and holds. And then you just notice that you kind of like wick or fake out somewhere and it just dumps.
Yep. So yep. When I see that, when I see the volatility increasing as prices increasing, the best sort of advice or the best thing that I do in those time frames is I try to zoom out and look for like, hey, where are we headed that is most likely going to trigger a reversal? Because one of these has to give. So I will look at NQ on higher time frames, look at like the ranges, etc. Where are we? Then VIX, then ES, like kind of just 1, 2, 3. And I'll be looking for like, okay, is VIX climbing to just like sweep a level and then VIX will fade and we'll continue back upward, or is NQ and ES climbing and they're going to do the same thing? And there's been times where I've noticed it that it's like, okay, and I probably like I will keep this on the back of my mind. And if I have these instances where I'm like, hey, this is where they were moving all together,
Mhm.
and then like here's what happened, like here's the level we saw. But that's why I like the bases loaded, because like the bases loaded, gets me into trades and it keeps me from entering into poor quality trades, right? Other than like maybe like me playing like sort of a suspicion or like a hey, this looks suspicious here, right? Because we didn't fully get a bases we didn't get a bases loaded short here until the very last candle of the day, you know. Even then,
Mhm.
the market closed, right? So like I would have just been going off of the multi time frame cloud that we swept the highs, that the wick couldn't push higher, that it looked weak, et cetera, et cetera. I was be going off of all those things. Um, but when they're all moving in the same direction, like market down, VIX down, or market up, VIX up. That's how I know, like, okay, like caution. Maybe I need to take
Yeah.
some more off, maybe to lock more profit in, and I would rather lock more profit in and keep my stop at a reasonable spot than like lock more profit in and then also move my stop up and then get taken out of the trade entirely. You
Yeah.
know?
And another thing I've also noticed that I wanted to share with you, and I wanted to know if you see the same thing, like Friday, ES, when it opened up, you got like this big ripper it opened, and it came and almost did a double bottom, but ES sorry, VIX only made a 50% move. So that gave me confirmation in the long a lot more. If you look at ES on Friday, at the same time, I'm
Yep.
watching the 5, but it's almost the same thing there. So you see, actually, we basically did we wicked almost to a lower low, and
Yep.
then it was a deeper pullback, but on VIX, you saw it was weak,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
which is
And
a complete reverse. This is what gives me like, that's what I've noticed the most
yep.
with,
Yep, that's perfect, dude. That you honestly you were seeing the same thing I did because
yeah.
even though the bases were loaded for the short, the market structure was telling me, "Hey, this does not look right." Like especially when this candle closed, like when the 1020 candle closed and it had wicked down on NQ but failed to
Mm.
make a new low and it pushed back up. And then what is this? Like why? What is that? Oh, it's a range from the other day. Okay. Um, and then the same thing, like VIX had looked like a break in base under pre-market low, and it the same thing, like looking at the whole day, it looked like a golden zone pullback, right? So it looked weak, and it was just in a downtrend all night. And then when I hopped on voice with Maple, and Maple did a good job. He took a short from here, right? And
Mm.
I scalped along on this candle from 77. I got in long here, and this candle moved up and then moved up first before coming back down. So I got some good profits out on this one, and then took it long again. And then obviously you see how this one like went. But this candle here, and then like I just knew like buying this dip, same thing. ES went
Yeah.
lower than the prior candle, but couldn't break the news candle low. So told me that the news buyers were trying to hold it up. And even watching the news candle print, I was just like, this doesn't look good. Like
Hmm.
the news was incredibly bearish
Yeah.
and we are not going down. And
And yeah, we basically just took out the buyers of the open at 9:30,
mm-hmm,
took out those stops
mm-hmm,
for more liquidity, and it just shot up higher.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, um, exactly. So I was saying, I hopped on voice with Maple when I said, "Hey, look, like I understand, that the news was bearish and we don't typically read the numbers, but we all know the news was very bad,
Yeah.
and the University of Michigan sentiment was very bad. So if we're going off of all of this, right, at some point, bad data is going to become good for the market because the bad data is going to put more pressure on the Fed to cut rates, and if the Fed cuts rates, there will be a spike." And so
Exactly.
that's where I think this is. And I said also, like if I'm watching this candle print, and I'm watching this candle very very closely every tick, and the buyers are eating this up. And then
Yeah.
somebody who was watching Footprint said, "Oh yeah, there's tons of buying going on right now. Like they're not moving this lower. They're not letting this go."
Yep. I don't know if you ever use cumulative delta. I
No.
use CVD, and if you look at the cumulative delta, I could send you a screenshot in the chat.
Yeah.
Uh, it made it made a higher low. It made a here. Let me send this to you. I mean, to me, it was just like, okay, buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this. 1 second. I'm just gonna. So I don't use volume that much as I used to. Here,
Mm-hmm.
it's in the it's in the chat. So you see, I put it for the 10 minute, just like you watch it. And if you see how at open we kind of did that exactly right there. So you see how it just kind of came down on that first. This is the 10 minute, yes. At like 10 o'clock candle where we swept
Mm-hmm.
the lows.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, look at the volume on the CVD. It There's no buying volume there. Sorry, there was no selling. There's no sellers pushing this down.
Mm-hmm.
So this tells me everything is just getting absorbed, and bam, you fire off.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's one of the things that I use for my confluences is this here, the cumulative delta. So it just basically puts together buying volume and selling volume, right? So if you buy this much and then that goes up, and then if you have this many sellers, it goes down, and it just accumulates it over time, and it gives you a candle chart. You see a lot of nice things with it. Very, very interesting stuff, especially like this. This one to me was a buy. Like it swept the lows, you made a higher low. I used some stochastics as well, and it was just saying enter, enter,
Mm-hmm.
enter, enter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, this just looks like so clean too. Like just looking at even
Hmm.
whatever this dotted line is, just looking across at
Yeah.
how they
Good.
moved
Those
up.
market structure lines. Yeah.
Base, boom, boom, boom. Yeah, this was great. It's really good. Really good. Again, like timing, again, I would say like timing reversals, like spend some time talking about this one. You know, here's so like here's Friday's low on NQ right back here. So,
Hmm.
you know, now we're getting
Yes.
into now we get into Wednesday. So CPI comes out, wicks off of Friday's low, nice back down. That's not good. And then like if I just go back to having all three charts together, Wednesday's here. Yep. So Wednesday gave one of my favorite setups on VIX to understand and have confluence, for a short or for a long trade, and those are the pre-market sleeps or pre-market fake out breakouts. So like here, right off of the open, there was a pre-market fake out breakout. It's really important to note that you had this gap down in price. When the market opens, when VIX opens, it can be, minutes later. It's on this particular day, VIX did not open until 9:32. So there was 2 minutes of absence of candle now. In that absence of candle, NQ pushed up, but couldn't break, like it just pushed up into the same high wick area. And then it's like, well, I understand there's only so much you can do in 10 minutes, but very concerning to me that we've already broken this pivot high and then like we're encountering resistance here, right? And so I'm not
Yes.
saying that I would just like blindly take this short, because I wouldn't. Um, I would be sitting there hoping that it was going to go higher and we get a fake out, and then when it was all the way back down here, I'd be like, well, shoot, I missed that one. That's a 100-point drop, already. Like this candle is 141 points on 10 minutes. Um, but but like what would concern me is that like yes, I have a candle by candle flip bearish on VIX, but like if you specifically look at where that candle closed, wicks do the damage, bodies tell the story. This is telling you right here, hey, no, like this doesn't look right. We should have closed under. If we were going to close under, we would continue down, right? We had a nice
Hmm.
downtrend all night into CPI. Then CPI comes out and we makes this candle low wick. Why can't we close under the CPI candle? Is like saying the same thing. Why can't we close over the NQ CPI high? And then on ES, it's even worse because we reject the pivot of the, like, after CPI prints. CPI prints, it comes back nasty, comes back up, then we reject that pivot and we start moving down.
Hmm.
Right. And then so if you look at what did I do here? If you look at like the first 20 minutes of price action, right? Because you're still candle by candle bearish here. You get a pullback on this candle body, right? And I'm specifically talking about this candle body, because this would be the golden zone of the first 20 minutes. That's all the price action you have at this point. When you get to this, the third candle of the day, you now have bases loaded for your short, right? Because VIX has flipped back long with strength, NQ flipped back
Hmm.
short with strength. So now you would be looking to go short. Same thing here. Like if you did it off the body, it's a perfect golden zone. And if you did it from the high of the day to the low of the day, it's still basically a perfect golden zone. It's beautiful. And then they gave
Sure.
you multiple more opportunities to take the same short all day long. But the trend shifts. The trend shifts here, and it doesn't shift back on the market. Like you get a powerful VIX rejection at 10 o'clock on the 10 o'clock candle, which looks like an orb low fake out. Okay, but if I don't get in like very low near that orb low fake out, like going long in the middle of this range here is asking for trouble, right? Because people would be watching only the NQ chart and they would say, oh, well, we just broke the orb low in VWAP, but we got bought back up and now we're back over the 10-minute EMAs. Why wouldn't I go long on this pullback? Well, because the overall market, the S&P 500, looks like shit. And the king did not flip back long, right?
Nope.
And NQ did not flip back long. So you don't have bases loaded to go long. And this is where this whole thing shines, because it's like, hey, that looks enticing, but the system tells me it's not a long yet.
Exactly.
Does that make
A-
sense?
Absolutely, because what you're saying is also really correlating with what I'm doing. Because I sent you another screenshot of S&P 500 on CPI,
Mm-hmm.
and again, if you look at the volume delta, there's the 830 candle
Yep.
on the 10 minute,
Yeah.
and look what happened to the volume. That the dashed line below on the is the
Equilibrium.
no, sorry. No, in the bottom, the volume at the bottom there. Yeah, that red candle represents these, and this dashed line is the zero line.
Okay, zero.
So
Yep.
that means bears are in control.
Mm-hmm.
And look what happened is it tried to climb up, and look what the volume's doing. It's staying
Mm.
below zero.
And what
That's
what
telling me
what's this called?
cumulative volume cumulative volume delta.
I have cumulative volume
Yeah.
index.
Yeah. I think there is one that I have for whatchamacallit. This is a Thinkorswim one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you'd have to download it. This thing to me is just like gold. And when I'm starting to add the VIX
Yep.
strategy that you're doing, it just tells me I just feel like sizing up more on certain. It just adds so much more confidence to the play for me.
Yeah.
So well, maybe something you could also now maybe just study it on the side there, but you'll see how it just tells the same kind of story, which is and a lot of people expect CPI. You're like, oh look, it holds the previous structure, it tries to climb up, but there's basically no volume behind it whatsoever.
Yeah. Whoa. That changed my candles and everything too.
Did it? Oh,
Yep.
there it is.
This one's weird. I don't know what this
Uh,
study is.
that overnight volume, cumulative overnight volume.
That's crazy, dude. It changed all the candles colors and everything.
Interesting.
I don't know what this is doing though, because there's nothing down here on the bottom, but very interesting in whatever this did.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I'll
But
have to.
if you have trading view, look into cumulative volume delta.
Yeah.
So it just basically adds the volume according to the day. So let's say your first 10 minutes you get 10,000 buyers, right? And then you have 6,000 and so on. But sometimes the price is not going to move in the same direction. So it kind of indicates weakness or actual real volume push with price action. I find it's better than just volume on its own. Because unless you have level two going through, right? Your
Yeah.
bid and ask and really giving you more information. Volume on its own, I find sometimes is somewhat lacking. So with TradingView, I found it's a really, really good indicator because even sometimes it'll have divergences where it's gonna you're gonna see a lower low on price action, but you're like, oh, hold on, this volume's holding above this level. You're getting a higher low, and then you see it just rips higher, right?
Yeah. So it's kind of like this. Like this indicator is not the cumulative one, but this indicator does
Mm-hmm.
show like the majority of like this is selling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you see how your volume just depletes. Or yeah, exactly, yeah. See, you have all the volume, but then you're like, okay, this is all
All
not sure how
selling.
the candles are made here.
Yeah. It's tough though. The reason I took this off the chart is that like it's very easy to see this indicator, like not the one that you're talking about, but it's very easy to see
Yeah,
this indicator in terms of like just look at the chart. Like I'll give you
yeah,
like quick example. This is so what you're telling me here is like on this candle, let's just say 80-ish% of it is all selling. I probably would have guessed that based off of the fact that it has 80% of the candle has an upper wick. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And then like,
absolutely.
oh, this candle's a doji? Well, no shit. The selling and buying is
Yeah,
50-50, you know?
it's not adding more information.
Yeah, it's not.
It's yeah, if you look into cumulative delta, it's really really interesting. And then that's why sometimes you'll see kind of these weak continuation moves, and then
Yep.
you're like, oh, hold on, this is going lower and lower. So
Yep. Yeah, I definitely know exactly what you're talking about. Um, and then so like I don't want to like take up a ton of your time like just kind of like
yeah,
berating the same point, but like this was like again another good reversal here. Like what happens, like I I'm big on marking gaps. I need to do a session devoted entirely to gaps. I've just been continuing to compile, years of different examples of this, and you can just see it. So where we closed at 4 p.m. on the VIX to where we opened the very next day, we pull back into the golden zone, we wick over it, we hit this pivot, we hit the multi-time frame cloud. We show some initial rejection. We close right on the cloud and the EMA and everything, right? We close right on the fib, and then we have a candle by candle flip, right? And so here's an example of like VIX, is telling me VIX is telling me ahead of time that a reversal is possible, and on top of that, if you look at like the NQ move from the prior day, we had again gone back into the golden zone of that move after making a higher high. So we moved here, we made this, we came down to the golden zone, we pushed out, and we base out of the golden zone, we pushed all the way up, we break a new high. So now when we fail to sustain that high, the first stop is the golden zone, which we hold. And so I'm seeing that. I'm also seeing that like there was the good amount of buyers that showed up on this 10-minute candle relative to where this consolidation was that caused us to push, right? So, and then, but like where it really shines is if anybody was like concerned is on this candle, the same exact candle on all three charts, you get the candle by candle flip, and that's your bases loaded now long. And so the top of the chart would be green, because even though candle by candle is bearish on VIX, that's green for the market. You see how the 10-minute, 9 and 20 had just flipped, but they don't hold the flip, and now we're back down underneath it. That's going to tell me we had a failed trend change, and we're going to have this continue downward. So as this continues downward, there's no reason to think about like stopping out of this trade, but your final objective target should have been, breaking over this lower high. And honestly, like, I think that people kind of struggle with this a little bit because, okay, well, the candle by candle flipped here, so then I would be going long here, and it's like, well, where do I know I'm wrong? Well, like, I mean, technically, you don't know you're wrong until like 60 points lower because you'd be flipping candle by candle. But then how would I get this entry? You really don't. Like, you'd have to take this on a 1-minute chart because like this is a very, very fast reversal. But I have a lot of confidence in this reversal because like, look at what happened here. From like the structure is all pointing towards, hey, we're going to reverse, right? Like this is all it's got. Now we're going to have profit taking that turns into kind of a reversal midday trend. And then go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you brought up a really, really good point, is that we keep trying to grab the bottom of the wick to minimize risk, but I find it's a very unrealistic approach with how really price action moves. And I got this off of Lance Brightstein. He uses always previous candle highs, and he usually uses the 31st swings. And since I've been applying that, like for example, if you look exactly at NQ and ES, because I took this long here, the last bearish candle there came into that demand zone that you have at the bottom.
Yeah.
The next candle took out the previous candle's high.
Right.
So if you were in a short, you're taken out of your short if you're trailing your stop.
Correct.
That's how I see it. So that tells me, that plus the confluence, plus whatever confluences that you're using.
Yep.
But you want to wait for that confirmation, because if your confirmation is right, your R&R is already gonna, is gonna be great. You don't, and as long as you just risk, let's say the previous candle low or the other candle's low, if you just even go for a 2-to-1, you're gonna kill it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And people are like, oh, I don't want to risk it. And I should take the wick off the bottom. Well, it's a little unrealistic.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very unrealistic to think if you're gonna do that, you might as well just buy every single wick.
Right.
Bottom wick, right? Which is never really gonna work.
No, it's not. Like long term, it's not going to work. But you're right. You for all intents and purposes, you have a bullish engulfing here. The body overtakes the body of the other one.
Exactly.
And that's really what like the candle by candle system is really all about, that Maple created. It's no different. It's not any different really than the bar by bar strategy that Al Brooks teaches. But he does it on a 5-minute. So like, granted, like it's Maple's strategy, and he's really honed it with the 10 and 2 system, you know, and it's phenomenal, and it works. I've seen it. It works so well, so much of the time that it's just like, yeah, if you just traded this, you'd be profitable. Like just
Yeah.
forget everything else and just trade this, you'll be profitable.
Respect your stops
Yeah.
and respect your risk management, size properly, because if
Yep.
you're risking the low of that, know that if that's going to be $2,000, you better not be on a 50K account, right? Or vice versa.
Exactly. So size down to micros and take respectable risk.
Or take a bigger account and be
Yeah.
able to withstand that, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, you know, and then as far as like this goes, you know, I know the candle by candle flips on this candle, but when you have like this, you know, you see this, if there's a 50% fib right here. If you did the whole candle, it's still the 50% fib. So like, you know, there's different ways that you could have gotten into that and been very successful, but the trend changes, it continues to go down. Now, here's where like it gets messy and this is ugly, right? But like you don't get a confirmed trend change here. Like this just looks like a very gross pullback. So you get a very gross pullback off of the same area where, you know, where sellers were definitely took control. And also like if we look at ES, I had drawn that fib. If we just took this same fib and extended it over, come on, don't be difficult. Oops. Where am I trying to be? Right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like look where again the golden zone rejects and it pushes back out, right? So like you get it here, a golden zone tap, it pushes, but you don't get a trend reversal. You still don't get a trend reversal. Okay, you're still bullish, so it's like I'm buying longs. You're still bullish, and where are you scaling? You should be scaling over pivot high here on ES. You should be scaling in this obvious supply area on NQ. Like this is one of those times where I tell people, I'm not looking to scale over the pivot break. I'm looking to scale before the pivot and lock in my profits, and good thing, right? Because then it starts to fail. And I've already had like some, you know, I've already been given 2 different candles worth of indication that there are sellers sitting here, right? And now I know VWAP buyers, so we kind of like, this is a range. So if I know the range, I would be looking to scale above the here, above the opening print, above the close of this candle, the open of this candle. That's where I'd scale. So I don't really care that I might be scaling at 698 and it went to 720, because for those 22 points, I didn't know that was going to happen, but I knew for sure where sellers were sitting. So I got out and I locked in my profit. And, you know, we're never going to get the top and the bottom, but in that case, I'm going to get more than 80% of the move, and I'm happy with that. And you don't have a trend, any semblance of a trend change here, and then VIX continues to move lower, right? And so I gotta zoom out so you can see. The concern is, as I said, I mark gaps. We gapped from Friday's close to Monday's open. We gapped here.
Interesting.
We are now sitting. This price action was very concerning to me, as we were now sitting in the golden zone of that Monday gap up for VIX. And so I'm expecting there to be some sense of a reaction here. And if VIX is going to hold this general area, we will go lower. But if not, we are going to go back up and go higher. So now that I've like identified that, and also I did also put this gap in price action on watch. It's on the, I'll show you some of my regular drawing set that I use. See, I have this one marked, watch this area. So because I knew that there was gonna be something there, and then again, I'm getting ahead of myself, but you can kind of see just like here where we rejected, and it became like a very, very like interesting spot because we didn't have quite full like overlap. And so anytime we have like true gaps, I'm always watching them, you know, because it's like, why did price jump right there? You know, it made a leap. But so like now zooming back out of this on the VIX.
What is FOBO?
A fake out breakout.
Fake out breakout. Got it.
Yep. Sorry. So then like you see here, we get like, this is like small, but it's like, well, we just broke the 61 fib of that gap, and then we close back above it. And that's like my, oh shoot, look out signal, right? And then what happens on the next candle? You get bases loaded confirmation to go short. All 3 of them. And this is the type of stuff where like you get this, like if you were on the 2-minute, you see kind of like this M pattern that forms, and it's like drawn out, and it's like la da 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 cliff, you know? And that's exactly how it works out. And then where do we go? We go to the golden zone of the prior range. You know, like, and so a lot of it has to do with understanding and reading market structure, but like simply having the basis loaded indicator at the top tells me, hey, watch out. Hey,
Yeah.
not yet. Hey, now. You know?
Basically teaching you patience.
Yeah,
Be patient.
yeah,
That's all it is.
yeah.
So you only take a trade when your bases are loaded?
Most of the time.
Okay.
Most of the trades are in continuation with bases loaded. The only example,
The fake outs that you showed me are the
yeah,
ones you're not taking. Yeah.
like very very obvious fake outs. I would be like, okay, you know what? My risk is so tight here. I have to, because the reward is, it's exponential.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
and in even like, and that's the thing too, is like if I look at those trade setups, if like even if, and they don't, I would say even if 4 or 5 of them fail, but they don't, um I probably would only need 2 of them to work to to overtake the losses of the first 8,
Exactly.
because they're just so exponentially, the RR is so exponentially skewed in my favor. It's like, okay, like I got to do this.
And what I'm finding also is when you're more patient waiting for a confirmation, whereas people are preemptive in the trade,
Right.
preemptive trades, I've realized have such a low risk to reward ratio. But
Yes.
when you get a confirmation and you know sellers are taken out,
Yep.
and with whatever confluence that you use, the R&R sometimes hits you 3, 4, 5 to 1.
Right.
So it's worth that risk, and once you get used to taking that risk and sometimes being taken out, and if you have a 70, I know with my stats I'm about at 78% win rate. It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
just take it to the chin, because next time you're gonna just make it all up in one trade, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. The trick is not tilting. When you take that loss because you knew it was coming.
No, the weakest link of all trading is the human behind the freaking mouse.
That's it. That's why they talk about how you can give a winning trade strategy to 100 different people and very few of them would actually make money.
Exactly.
And that's why so many traders fail, right? Like 90% of traders lose 90% of their money in the first 90 days because of this, because of them. Man in the mirror. Um
You know,
so trying to think of like where there was any other good examples
yeah.
that I had
I'm
lined
kind of
out.
I'm sifting through VIX and ES. The ones that really stand out to me, I haven't developed the same eye that you have because you've been looking at this much longer. It's the real divergences when
Hmm.
I'm seeing both climb, or when you see it kind of make a double bottom where on, let's say, ES, but VIX is still weak,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
So I know that's going to be a ripper day. So not a ripper day, but I know it's a good move that I should be taking in a sense. Trying to um, is this one? No, no. So
Here's
yeah,
here's another good one too.
yeah.
Is that like, um this is what led me into wanting to swing calls Thursday night into Friday.
How did that go? Calls into Friday. Oh yeah, you made money.
Yeah, yeah, you could.
Thursday to Friday overnight.
Yeah, you can go ahead and check out the X post, bro. It went all right.
Oh.
It went all right. It went all right. Not a record day by any means, but it went all right. So like, here's a good example of like VIX made this like massive, push up. Um, and so we almost filled the gap, right? And then we moved like almost all the way to the other side of the range. And then we basically just peaked over 26 and we knifed hard. We made this huge rejection out of 26. And then the same thing here, right? Big pop off of the bottom. I think I got to go forward a day. Yep, right here. Big pop off of the bottom here on ES, right? Pushes up into the orb low. So, um, and then from here at the orb low, you get like, this was actually a really solid trade setup, right? Like you get NQ peaked over this pivot, right? So swept out these shorts and it comes back down. VIX peaked under this pivot, right? Like, so it was moving down, inverted hammer, moves lower, whoop, flips, right? And then on the next candle, you get this like small body pullback. And then the next one, it like falls off. So like, this is a really great example of what would I say? Like the bases loaded short, buying the pullback on the bases loaded short, like with like, and having defined risk, because like, yeah, it looked like, okay, well, the 10-minute EMAs are pinching and stuff. And I could see a lot of confluence for like why you'd like to go long, but I now have all three bases loaded short. And so if I have all three bases loaded short, I don't want to go long until like the market has to tell me to go long. And so that's going to either be like the next candle has to break up and close here, or like VIX is going to have to make another move down. And like this is where they faked you out, and they were happy to fake you out because we came back into the golden zone. We broken up, right? And then same thing, like from this whole day's range, what did we do? We were in the golden zone of this whole day's range right here. I know I have overlapping fibs. I'll delete this one for a second. But like, that's what we were doing. And so we pushed up, we came back down, and then they flipped. And when they flipped, I have to see the flip go back the other way before I can. Otherwise, it's like, that's what bases loaded is telling me. The bears are up to bat, not the bulls. And it's just literally just, who's it back? And so that's the way I should trade. And if I'm going to trade against that, my probability of success is significantly lower. I know that from my trading. I know that from my back testing. And then I know it from reviewing, right? Which I guess back testing is like reviewing.
But that's why also I use this indicator that kind of gives me swing highs and swing lows. It just calculates them at a certain strength. Is it keeps me out of these internal lows that I call, the one that you saw where there was that fake base there.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, that low on the NQ, 10-minute just before 1 p.m. Yeah, exactly, yeah. But if you look back to the left, you're thinking it's basing off that short continuation just to... Yeah, exactly. That's why when I see that, I'm not saying, oh, this is going to hold here, because I know those buyers got taken out with that swing high up there.
Oh, yeah.
Just
And
above it. So I never take that because I know I'm in the middle. I'm either in the long on the bottom, or you're shorting the top, because that's where I'd exit the long, basically.
yeah. And like from a market structure perspective, you look at like the market made this other leg down, it makes this leg down. And then what happens from this low pushes up and it barely breaks this high. Because this low barely broke this high, and then it rejected so hard, resulting in a trend change, where CPC change, it makes me think that we are going to go down and test this low. And obviously we don't break and close under here, but we do break below this CPC flip candle low, right? And like, look, this was the CPC flip that flipped short for us to go lower. We broke over, we wicked, and we rejected. We broke under, we wicked, and we popped, right? So this was like, yo, I got to swing calls into tomorrow. And why do I have to swing calls into tomorrow with time or whatever, like this spy calls?
I understand the logic behind that, yeah.
Yeah, well, because wait a second, we just wicked under this, and then the trend changed. And so that's telling me, wait a second, we wicked under that candle and the trend changed back to bullish, right? Everything changed. Look, it's changing back to bullish. It's changing back to bullish. And the candle's about to close. Minutes before the close, I'm like, yo, if that's what's really going to happen here, then we're going to open up and be over at least these highs. But since we've already done this twice, where are we probably going to go? We're probably going to go even higher. And let's like, we broke over these ones, right? Look where we open. Yeah. We open right about the middle of the day, right? This is my orb mid area. That's exactly where we open. And the first thing we do is yoink right up.
And look, we break in base over previous day's high.
Later on.
Yeah, later on in the day, yeah.
Yeah.
Right off the orb high. Yeah.
Right. And so like, because I swung, I'll show it to you as I swung SPY calls, not QQQ calls. But same thing, right? So SPY comes down, it wicks under these candles, it comes down to the same area, cannot break this low, which gave me additional confirmation. That's like, well, if this was a strong high, right? Because we did the same thing. We wicked over this, or we had like, it was like a tick. But if this was a strong high, it was going to make a new low. The fact that it's failing to make a new low and this is reversing, telling me a trend change is coming, or we're in the midst of a trend change, then I know that we are likely to break over this high. And if we break over and hold over this high, then there'll be a fire sale to get out the door, and we're going to push up. And then look, that's exactly what happened. So when we opened, right, I didn't scale anything on the SPY calls. I waited, and I scaled out a pre-market high break, and I scaled out at like literally just before the previous day high break, because again, I don't need to scale right at the pivot. I'm not going to be like, I think the phrase is don't be a dick for a tick. Like,
Yeah.
And I was fine with it, because I was like, hey, you know what? I'll scale out here, and then I've trimmed the position off, and then I'm thinking about like when I saw this candle and we pushed up and then we started to move back down, I trimmed off even more, because I said, hey, news is coming at 10. I don't know what that's going to be like. I'm going to lock in more profit and essentially just go down to runners on this, right? So I believe I was only down to like 4 cons after. So like when the news hit, I only had 4 cons. Obviously, those took a big blow, but I held them because I was like, I still have time, because they were not Friday expiries, they were Mondays. And let me see if my theory about, hey, this is going to like bearish news is going to be bullish for the market, because at a certain point it's going to put pressure on the Fed to have to cut rates because of how bad things are. So if consumer sentiment and thoughts on inflation and everything is really bad, the Fed might have an increased likelihood of cutting, which would be bullish. And watching this candle, they just couldn't do it. Right.
Yeah.
And if we had closed on a low of day, I would have cut them. I probably would have lost like, more than half of the profit that I had on those 4. But
You're already in profit. Yeah.
I was already super fat in profit. Like if I let them go to break even, it was a super fat trade. So, it didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But then obviously the rest of it played out. And then, I think, truthfully, I cut them, was it 130? I feel like it was after this high. I trimmed another one. I did trim another one like in this area here. And then I trimmed another one when we broke this high. I had an alert when we trimmed it.
Yeah.
Yep. I was like, yo, I'm trimming 1. So I think I trimmed 2, I trimmed 1, and then I had 1 left, and I cut it right here. And reason being, I was just like, hey, you know what? I don't really know what this is gonna do, but this was a great trade, so I'm just gonna let it go. I don't need.
Because
Keep watching
what
it.
I saw here is you did a break and base almost relatively of your orb high,
Mm-hmm.
but we never broke higher to come back and retest that previous high of day. You know what I mean? We
Right.
kind of just swept it, came back down, and then it just ranged, I think, for the rest of the day, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it kept ranging. So you're like, okay, well, it's not the momentum trend day you expect, but it
Right.
was good enough to kind of break the downtrend to the upside now. Question
Yep.
is gonna hold, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah. Exactly. I was just looking. Um, I was just looking to at the whole picture, and I saw, well, if we broke that high and I scaled there, great. But we're rejecting that high, and if we're rejecting that high, I was looking at the options contract chart, and I'm thinking, well, if we're like in here, we rejected that high, like maybe this holds, but like, ideally, not ideally, but it's possible that we're going to come down here below this. And I was just like, I don't really want to sit through all this and then be like, when do I cut? Oh, why did I knew, like, if it came down under here, or if it failed and kept going to VWAP, I would be sitting there like, I knew I should have cut it up here. So I was like, let me just get rid of it. Like, it's 1 con. I'll
yeah.
just,
If it went higher than the previous high of day, like really much higher, and came and based above that previous high of day, which you scaled out, then you'd be looking at holding it maybe a little longer for another retest of
sure.
the previous high, the next high of day. But very so it's interesting because you didn't just use technical analysis, you used economic news context
Yeah.
combined in that swing, which is really what you need for confidence in an overnight swing, basically.
Yeah,
Because
but I also knew there was no news until 10, so I wasn't going to be subjected until in the news until 10, this 10 a.m. trade, and then like this 10 a.m. candle, and then like the thing with the 10 a.m. thing, like even leading up to it, I thought like to myself, well, hey, um, we've had so much bearish price action, and I know what's low can go lower, but at a
Yeah.
certain point, the bearish thesis is becoming overcrowded, and everywhere online, it was just like, this looks bad, this looks bad, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad. Trump sucks, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad, right? And I was just like, this is the prime opportunity for the market makers to catch people offside. Say, oh, you think it's bad? Just wait,
Hmm.
just wait, because I'm going to screw you on your shorts now.
When everybody's selling, we should be buying. Uh,
Exactly.
and
And
that's why I was been adding into my long term port
mhm.
on S&P 500. I've added quite a bit, a
Yep,
lot, just buying into this dip, and this is exactly what I wanted to see this day. Exactly, dude. Yeah,
yep,
extreme fear.
yep,
Extreme fear is the best time to buy, and a lot of my buddies from work are like, "Shuki, what's going on with the market?" I'm like, "Buy the dip." I could send you screenshots of our text group text message. I'm like, "Buy the dip."
yep,
Everywhere, everywhere. You're never gonna catch where it is, but at these kind of rebates, it's worthwhile. It's
yep.
really, really worthwhile.
Yep, and
Yeah.
when the market closed on Thursday, we were at extreme fear of 16. So I just felt like I'm gonna play this because the probability of us moving higher is now greater than the probability of us moving lower. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I just want to say like I didn't think that they would go to zero. Like I didn't think
Mhm.
I was going to wake up to some cataclysmic event. But like if it did, it would have sucked. But I had this conversation like with a few other traders. I was just like, honestly, I didn't lose a wink of sleep about it because I said it'll be what it'll be. Like because it was not in a position it was not a position to put me in financial ruin. Like I would never tell somebody, "Oh, you'll full port YOLO your whole account into this." Like no, like
Mhm.
if it went to zero, it'd be like, well, that sucked. But I would have shared that loss and it would have been like, I tried something and here's what I thought and it didn't work. And probably would have had every Tom, Dick, and Harry come out and an armchair quarterback me and be like, well, Joe, you should have known we're in a downtrend. And it's like, I know that.
Exactly. Yes,
I
yes.
know that.
Hindsight. Hindsight.
But
Thank you.
I wasn't buying calls like into every other day's close. And that was like the real thing, like looking at ES, like if you even if I just I'm just gonna go like the 30-minute chart, which has like no indicators on it, right?
Mhm.
Where are we?
You ever thought of maybe going further out in time, like maybe a 30 to 45 days? And what's nice about it is that when you start seeing indication of buying, you can kind of like scale into that call position.
Mm-hmm.
The guy from TWL always kind of does these moves where he scales into these really 45, 60 days out, only on monthlies, sorry, so not at 45, 30, 60s.
Yep.
And he'll basically just start putting in a starter and start seeing. And once he starts seeing where the price action is, he kind of has a daily low to say, okay, it breaks through this with strength amount. And the win rate on them is just disgustingly amazing.
Hmm. No.
Because you're basically buying time, right? Time's on your it's more expensive, but yeah.
Yeah. Yep. This is.
Interesting. So what's this?
Yeah, I was just. This is like anything on NQ specifically, but I was
Oh
watching it on
yeah.
ES too. Like, here's Friday's low, here's Monday's low. We peak under Monday's low. We peak under Monday's low. Then we peaked under Monday's low. Like we just kept peaking down, and then even if I just use it as like, well, where's the low of the week? Like we peaked under Tuesday's low. So I was just looking at it like, hey, we're ranging. And again, like I still don't feel quote unquote like we should be bullish down here because we're
Mm-mm.
still up against like this level and the likelihood of us puking and going lower, I feel like is still quite strong. But but
Absolutely.
down here, buying calls like literally right here on like on this sort of chart, doesn't it make the like it's like okay, well why can't we close and hold under this low? Why aren't we going lower?
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
sometimes the market just does this jacked up thing where it's like, hey, before I go lower, I gotta go higher.
Because sellers want to sell at a higher price,
Mm-hmm.
take out more buyers, and then go back down.
That's right.
I mean, it's the logic that a lot of people don't think about, right? They don't understand that it has if if you're looking to sell, you're gonna push price higher so you could sell at a higher price,
Mm-hmm.
which is what everybody wants, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it just, with the amount of volume they're putting into the market, they're gonna make it dump further,
Yep.
searching for more buyers.
Yep.
But it's interesting because I'm looking at ES and they didn't move similarly. I think ES dipped lower. Wow.
ES did dip lower too, and that's like where I
Yeah.
was like, I know I was potentially playing with fire, like, because ES did move lower, but I had the same thought process of like, well, how come, like, and even just looking at this like on a 30-minute or even on the hourly,
Mm.
how come we can move lower, and then we put in, a big bullish engulfing candle off that low, like. This is like a big sign to me that this doesn't look right. Not at the low, right? I mean, because look what happened here when we put in this bullish doji, and we had all these hours of like price action being stuck right here, and we wicked down bullish doji, ripped, right? And then of course
Mhm.
it gave it all back, almost all of it back, right? But this is pre CPI. But then the same thing moves down, rip back, right? Moves down, rip back, moves down, tries to move down, moves under, closes under, rip back above. And then it just barely like closed, and we closed the day out just barely under Tuesday's low. And it's like the lowest close of the week. I mean, again,
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if it aligns perfectly with NQ, but ES, the CPI high is Friday's low. I think this will be the true test. We have to break above that for a true reversal, which is I think right there. Yeah, that high there. That's your CPI high.
yep.
And it's Friday's low for ES. It's probably I think the same thing for NQ there. Is it
You
Friday's
mean it's
low?
Friday's high of day?
Last Friday's, the previous week's Friday.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yep. It is. It is on NQ. It's the same thing. Yep,
exactly. Yeah.
yep,
We oh there it is. Yes. We break and base above this. Now I'm seeing a reversal.
yep.
You- Now I'm seeing the W going on here.
Yeah, and that would make a whole lot of sense, right? Because it would be like this. Essentially, this is messy, but
Mm-hmm.
essentially,
Yep.
but
But nothing holds us from retesting these lows again, the previous lows, sweeping them and coming back up, you know.
yep.
Well, yeah, this is where you should be buying basically.
Basically, yeah. But if you don't have any other questions about
Ah,
VIX and
dude, yeah,
stuff,
that's about it, dude. This has been very insightful.
awesome, man.
Very,
I'm,
very,
well,
very.
I'm glad I could help and everything. And I gotta let you. I
Thank
gotta
you
let you
very much.
go.
Yeah, yeah,
And
same here. I got things to do around the house as well. It was great chatting with you again, Joe.
yeah, you
And
too, man.
let me know when you can slap that on that recording on, and I'll share it with everybody so we can all look at it and maybe rediscuss it further if anybody has any other questions.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I will.
Thanks.
Whatchamacallit? I will get it posted and send you the link probably in the next half hour, 45 minutes.
Awesome, dude, Joe. Thank you for your time, man.